Last night I dreamed you were holding my hand as we walked through the show. Red and brown sun.
Good morning and welcome to Creekside. Please stand with us if you can and let us worship God today.
trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. I rest on His unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. My anchor holds within the veil. Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When He shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone, faultless stand before the throne. Christ alone, cornerstone,
Please be seated. Good morning. I'm George McCullis III, and I'm one of your Creekside elders. We celebrate communion on the first Sunday of each month. This is the church family's community meal where we remember Jesus' death on the cross for our sins. When we take communion, we are remembering Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. The bread and wine are tangible, visible reminders of Christ's sacrificial love. This is a time to bring ourselves before the Lord in self-reflection and partake in the life he has given us through his death and resurrection. As we reflect on Jesus' death, I ask that you pause, reflecting on our brokenness as sinners and how Christ's death paid for our sins with a price we could never pay, a blood sacrifice by the Lamb of God. If you're a believer in Jesus, we invite you to celebrate with us. If you don't believe in Jesus, we understand you wouldn't feel comfortable celebrating something you don't believe in. If you're a parent with young children, we leave it for you to decide if they understand the significance of communion and are ready to celebrate. As the worship team plays, let's reflect on Christ's death. Once everyone has communion elements, we'll celebrate together. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took bread and said, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." On the same night, he took a cup and said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Remember me as often you drink of it." Let us pray. Oh, precious and merciful Father, we come before you this morning as a body of believers, Father God, as sinners filled with brokenness, as is our nature, Lord God. But we give thanks for the power of redemption and resurrection that we receive through your Son, Christ Jesus, who willingly went to the cross, Father, for our sins. Help us, Lord, to follow his example, Lord. Help us to be salt and light in a world filled with darkness, Lord. Make us instruments of your will, Father God. Help us to walk in steadfastness and with a constant reminder, Lord God, of who we are in you. And these things we ask and pray in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Please stand if you're able and sing with us. Oh, praise the one who paid my debt and you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory. Who rules the nations with truth and justice? Shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, 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 Lord. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. You laid down your life. That I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
I think I'm going to try AI to design a poster for the Creekside picnic. Let's see now. The picnic is at the San Leandro Marina, so AI, create an image of lots of happy people from a church picnicking by the water. Okay, what else? AI, make a sign for the Seagull Group picnic area. That'll work. AI, show that the picnic is on August 25th. All right. AI, make it clear that the picnic starts at 11:30 a.m. Close enough. What else? Oh, AI, add lots of hamburgers and hot dogs. Okay. Oh, we'll need some volunteers. AI, add someone grilling meat. Wow, it's amazing what technology can do these days. In the off chance that this picture doesn't make everything entirely clear to you, here's what you need to know about the Creekside picnic.
Creekside. Thank you for joining us this morning. If this is your first time here, welcome. We're so glad you're here and would like to offer you a gift, the drinkware of your choice. You can pick this up at the information table in the lobby after the service. If you would like more information about Creekside or there's something you would like prayer for, please fill out the gray card in the seat back in front of you. And if you're interested in serving at Creekside, please fill out the red card in the seat back in front of you. You can drop these cards in the offering slot after the service. All infants through 8th graders may now go to their classes. Parents, if you haven't registered your kids yet, you can do so now in the Children's Center lobby. Let's stand up and say good morning to the people around us.
Hey, good morning, family. Good to see all of you this morning. If it's your first time, welcome. My name is Jeff. I'm one of the pastors here. Thank you so much for joining us for worship today. So grateful to have you with us. Let's pray as we go to God's word today. Jesus, in your prayer for us in John 17, you say, I desire that they would see my glory. And Jesus, we ask for that today, that by faith we would see you as you really are, and have the courage and the conviction and the confidence to follow you. Help me to preach a better sermon, Spirit, than the one that I've prepared. I trust you can do that, and Jesus, I ask it for your sake. Amen. Earlier this summer, our family took a trip out to the East Coast, and we didn't realize this, but to travel to the East Coast is to give up a day of your life. It's gone forever. You are losing a day to go to the East Coast. And it was a sacrifice. We had a very wriggly 1-year-old who hates to stay in one seat. In fact, on our plane ride back, Nate pooped 4 times in 1 hour. 4 times. And he wasn't sick, it was just malice. He was just a sinful kid. He knew what he was doing. Now, for a variety of reasons, we flew across and had to fly into D.C. and then rent a car. And after we had rented the car, we were going to drive into New York City on the same day. And so as we're flying into D.C., I'm like, that's great. We're almost done. And I was wrong because I have never flown to the East Coast in my life. And so we get into D.C. and we get our rental car in rush hour traffic and get on the 95. And it was a sanctifying moment for our whole family. But you know what got me through the day? It was all these amazing things we got to see. Because if you do that entire trip in one day, you got to see the Golden Gate Bridge, and then Yosemite Valley, and then we saw the Canyonlands of southern Utah, then we saw the Rocky Mountains, and then we saw the St. Louis Arch, and then we saw the Washington Mall, and then we got to drive into New York City, and just when I was about to say and do things I would regret, We see that New York City skyline and the Statue of Liberty, and everybody goes, this is amazing. Can you believe it? And then we get to our place, and there was this rooftop deck, and we get up there, and we had this perfect view of the city, and everyone's happy. We're like, what a great day. We should do this more often. Following Jesus is harder than we imagine. The cost is greater than we expect. And the sobering truth is that I don't have the strength, I don't have the conviction, I don't have the confidence to keep walking with him. In myself, the cost is too high. And so the question today is, what sustains you? What vision, what glimpse, what do you need to see to keep embracing the cost? That's what I want to talk about today as we continue our series as Luke, and as Jesus tells his disciples about the cost of discipleship and what will keep them going. So 2 things today. First, the cost to follow Jesus. That's the first part of the passage. And then after he talks about the cost, he talks about the confidence to follow Jesus. So the cost, that's 18 through 26, and the confidence is the rest of the passage. Let's look at the cost. Many people talk about the benefits of following Jesus. In fact, in America, we've talked a lot about the benefits of following Jesus. In fact, benefits that the Bible doesn't even promise us. And all of these apparent blessings. Now, there are all sorts of blessings and eternal blessings for following Jesus. It is the greatest blessing. But Jesus doesn't start with the benefits. He starts with the cost. And it's very important that we count the cost and understand what this means for our lives. That's where he starts with the disciples. Luke says this. Next slide. Now it happened that as he was praying alone, the disciples were with him. And he asked them, who do the crowds say that I am? And they answered, John the Baptist. But others say Elijah, and others that one of the prophets of old has risen. This question that has been circulating in the Gospel of Luke is, who is Jesus? And you see all of these different answers. The demons cry out that he is the Son of God, the Holy One. The crowds think that he's a rabbi or a teacher or maybe a prophet. Jesus calls himself the Son of Man. But now Jesus is getting more pointed. He's saying, who do people think that I am? And we saw these answers earlier in the passage. This is the public opinion. Some people think it's John the Baptist, resurrected from the dead. Some people think it's Elijah, sent back from heaven. Some people think one of the prophets of old has arisen. So the disciples are aware of public opinion. But now Jesus makes the question much more uncomfortable. Then he said to them, but who do you say that I am? You know, one of the challenging things about Jesus is he will not allow us to be fence sitters. He says, make a choice. Because there's a temptation, I think, when we look at any issue, is to kind of give the array of public opinion, right? Well, this side says this, and I think there's some truth over here. But on the other hand, this side says this, and they say some good things over here. And if you do that, you know what you will sound like? A reasonable person. You said, this is measured. This guy's reasonable. He's rational. Jesus doesn't give us that option where we can just go like, well, on the one hand, these are things that are good about Jesus. On the other hand, though, here are some things I would critique about Jesus. No. Jesus makes these astonishing claims about himself, and then he says, do you agree? Do you agree? Who do you say that I am? Am I the Lord of the universe, or am I not? Jesus wants to push past public opinion to the disciples' perception. Who do you really think I am? And Peter and the disciples, they seem to get the question right. Peter answered, the Christ of God. In other words, Jesus, you are the Messiah. This promised king that the Old Testament has foretold. You're the one we've been waiting for. You're the guy. So they get the answer right. And at this point in the narrative, everything shifts. Jesus has had this public ministry in Galilee. Now things get much more focused for the disciples as they learn who Jesus really is, what his mission will actually entail, and what it means for them. Who do you say that I am, the Christ? They get the right answer. Well, is it the right answer? Look how Jesus responds. And he strictly charged and commanded them to tell this to no one. Now, that word, strictly charged, it's the word rebuke. That's what it is literally. So, rebuking them, Jesus said, tell no one. That's a weird response, isn't it? Jesus, you're the Christ, and I correct you. What? What is Jesus correcting? Well, here's what we know from the other Gospels. They get the answer right, but they have no idea what the answer means. They have no idea what it means for Jesus to be the Messiah. It's kind of like when I'm doing homework with my kids, math homework. You know how you can get the right answer and have no idea why it's the right answer? It's like a multiple choice, and it's like, what is it? C, yes. Why? It's like, because you pick C when you don't know the answer. And I'm like, no, we're not. You have to show me why. You have to show the word. My kids love me in that moment. It's like, no, you have to show me how you got there. And that's where the disciples are right now. They somehow, by God's grace, got the answer right that this is the Messiah, but they have no idea what it means for Jesus to be the Messiah. And so now he turns their paradigm of what it means on its head. He strictly charged them, and now he says to them, the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Now, it's hard to imagine how shocking this would have been for the disciples. He's the Christ. He's the Messiah. What is their conception of the Messiah? He's going to come and he's going to conquer. He's going to reign. He's going to kick Israel's enemies out. And now Jesus says, yes, I'm the Messiah, but I'm going to come not first to conquer, but to what? Die, to suffer. I'm not coming to kick out Israel's enemies. In fact, I'm going to be killed by Israel's enemies. That's the mission. This is a different conception of the Messiah. And it's not like this might happen. What does Jesus say? It must happen. This must happen. It must be that I go into Jerusalem and that I suffer. It must be that I am rejected by the religious establishment. It must be that I die a horrible death. And it must be that I rise from the dead. Here's what Jesus is saying. My story has already been written. It's in the Old Testament. This is actually what it's been pointing to all along. That's why Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 says that Christ died, was buried, and rose according to what? According to the Scriptures. Jesus is saying, if you look more carefully, this is what the Messiah is coming to do. I'm coming to suffer, and I'm coming to die. I'm coming to rise. So the disciples have to embrace who Jesus is, but then they have to embrace this mission that they did not expect. That's startling enough. But this might be even more startling for the disciples. Think about it. They're following this guy. They're following him. Where's he going? He's going to get killed. Where are they following him? To get killed. They are following him to death. And now Jesus creates this paradigm for how we understand what it means to follow him. And he said to all, if any would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and what? Follow me. Jesus says, now that you know where I'm going, you know what it means to follow me. Now, he was not explicit about his death. Now he is. He is going to be crucified, which means anyone who is following him has to take up their cross as well. And Jesus says this becomes a picture for what it means not just for those first disciples to follow Jesus, but what it means for me, what it means for you, what it means for anyone to follow Jesus. So what does that mean to take up your cross and follow Jesus? What did it mean in the first century to take up your cross? Well, it meant that you had been tried and convicted as the worst kind of criminal. You were the scum of the earth. And the court of public opinion had already made their ruling. The court of law had already made their ruling. You deserve the worst kind of death. Taking up your cross meant my life is over. It's over. Now, in the ancient world, we think about the horror of crucifixion as how painful it was, that it's a really painful way to die. In the first century, you know what was bad about crucifixion? How shameful it was. It's the most shameful way to die. It's an instrument of public humiliation. because you are publicly shamed, you are publicly condemned as the worst kind of person, you are publicly condemned to carry that shame to the place where you will die, all the while getting reviled. And does it matter if you try to defend yourself? Justify yourself? Try to defend your reputation? Nobody cares. There's no more justification. Your life is over. And the world has already rendered its judgment. Jesus says, this is the decision you must make. What does that mean to take up your cross? It means this fundamentally for every Christian. It means that we die to our need for the world's acceptance, the world's approval, the world's commendation, the world's applause. We stop living by the world's standards. We stop following the world's priorities. We are dead to the world and its way of thinking. And we embrace following Jesus, publicly identifying with him, even if it means we're weird, even if it means we're cast out. I think Paul says it best in Galatians 6. But far be it from me to boast except in what? The cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, by which the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. What is Paul saying there? I am dead to the world and the world is dead to me. The world's standards, the world's ways of thinking, what the world values, that's not how I live my life. It's all for Christ. I identify with him and I am done identifying with the world because I'm part of a different kingdom. Do you see that? The following Christ means identifying with Christ and being cast out by the world. It is a social challenge. And notice, it's a choice. Take up the cross. This is very important to understand because the way this phrase is used, it can be very misleading. You ever hear people say something like, that's my cross to bear? Often they're talking about things they don't choose, right? I got this relative, that's my cross to bear, is dealing with them. I got to get a root canal, that's my cross to bear today. That's not your cross to bear. Because often that's stuff you choose, don't choose, right? That kind of suffering, that kind of trouble, that's not the Christian life. You know what that is? Life. Life's hard. You suffer in this age filled with sickness and sin and death. And guess what? If you're a Christian, you'll suffer. If you're a non-Christian, you'll suffer. Everyone suffers because life is filled with suffering. That's not the kind of suffering he's talking about. He's saying you take up your identity in Jesus. You publicly identify with him even if it costs you something. Even if the world rejects you, even if the world thinks you are weird. That's what it means to follow Jesus, is to follow him and not the way of the world. Now, in some parts of the world, this social cost is very clear. If you're in a predominant Muslim country or a Hindu country and you decide to follow Jesus, you are dead. Maybe physically, but certainly socially. What does it mean for us? I think as our society has gotten less Christian in its thinking or assumptions, right, we begin to feel a little more uneasiness maybe about going public with our faith. And the reality is anytime you live publicly as a Christian, there's a pain line you need to cross because you don't know how people are going to respond, right? And there's two great temptations. One is to live in the world but just assimilate to the world. To go, no guys, I'm a Christian, but don't worry, we believe everything you do already. It's fine. And that's one temptation, is just to make Christianity just something the world thinks is palatable and great. And so maybe I engage with people and I don't like the Christian label, so I keep the bits of Christianity that I like and I go, guys, no, I'm a Christian, but I'm not that kind of Christian. I'm not that kind of Christian. And eventually you can assimilate so much that your views look just like the culture's. So that's one pressure, right, is to create Christianity 2.0 or, Christianity according to Jeff rather than Christianity according to Jesus. The other pressure is different. Instead of assimilating, you just isolate. You go, the world's this big, bad, terrible place, so I am just going to shield myself and my family from the world. And we're just going to be with people who think like us and talk like us and act like us and have our little Christian echo chamber both online and in the real world and just become a sectarian, basically, and never engage the world. It's easier to do now on the internet, right? I mean, like, I could find the 10 people who think just like I do in the world and then go talk to them somewhere. You know what both of those approaches don't require you to do? Suffer. Suffer. To live with a faithful Christian identity and keep engaging the world is always to risk friction, dissonance, not because you're a jerk and bang people over the head with your Christianity, but just because you don't follow the course of the world. And so a practical application question here is just, where do you need to cross the pain line? For some of you, it's just identifying with Christ around people who are close to you, just saying, yeah, I'm a Christian, even though people are going to look at you different. And they're going to look at you different no matter what. Sometimes we're called to serve people and love people, and there's not going to be any reciprocation coming back. The world's not going to get it or applaud you for it. We're called to bless when the world curses. Sometimes it's just being long-suffering in the way that we engage people, but there's a pain line to cross. You know what my pain line is? One of my big ones is just telling people I'm a pastor. And here's why, because we're in the Bay Area, and I'm weird because I'm a pastor, right? And I'm like a young-ish pastor, which is even weirder. Like, how do you get into that, right? What are you doing? And I just know it's going to create uncomfortable conversations the minute I tell someone I'm a pastor. And so I used to kind of shirk back, right? Because I didn't want that to be my first step in my relationship with people. And so people would be like, hey, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a spiritual life coach, right? Like, that's not true. That's just a lie. I'm not a spiritual life coach. I'm a pastor, right? I finally had to realize, like, I just got to come out and tell people I'm a pastor and the church is over there and you can look it up and all that stuff because I wanted to build up rapport and trust before I outed myself. I came out as a pastor, right? Because I knew the minute I did that, it was going to be weird. It is weird. The minute I do it, like, oh, you're a pastor. What kind of church? I'm like, oh, this kind of church. And try to really talk about the gospel. And they're like, oh, what do you believe? And then I talk about, what do you believe about fill in the blank? There's no bypassing the fact that that could be an awkward conversation. I gotta live with the fact, that's fine. All of us have to face that at some level. We have to walk into situations, and so where is that for you to just publicly cross that pain line? Sometimes it's at work, and people having a conversation you know that you should not be a part of because it's not glorifying to God, and you're the weird person who just doesn't say anything. What's wrong with him? I'm just not going to gossip and slander, right? You're weird. There's all sorts of little ways. What is God calling you to do to cross that pain line? Jesus says it's inevitable. You're going to have to cross it. What does he say? For whoever would save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words, of him will the Son of Man be ashamed when he comes in his glory, in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. Jesus says there's two options here. We can either try to save our life and lose it, or lose our life for his sake and find it. What does that mean? Saving your life means needing the priorities, the approval, the standards of the world, and keeping Jesus. And Jesus says you can't have both. If you try to conform to the world, you will lose your soul. Conversely, if you lose your life, if you don't live according to the world's course and you follow me and you seek first the kingdom, even if it requires you to be scorned and rejected, that's where you find life. Here's why Jesus says, because a day is coming when the Son of Man returns in his glory. And you know what no one will do on that day? No one will mock Jesus. When he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and the glory of angels, Scripture says that every mouth will be stopped. Isaiah says the kings of the world will shut their mouths in awe. Everyone will bow to Jesus and his glory. And the ones that will be honored on that day were the ones who identified with him in this life, who weren't ashamed to confess with their mouth Jesus is Lord and to identify publicly with him. You see the alternatives here? Taking up your cross, this is hard. You have to choose it. Am I going to cross the pain line? Am I going to keep seeking the kingdom, living like a Christian in public, even when it's difficult? And so here's the question, where do we get the confidence to live this way? What will fuel this kind of life? That's the second part of this passage. Jesus goes on to say this, but I tell you truly, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see what? The kingdom of God. Now, what does that mean? Because think about the context. Jesus just said, I'm going to return. And he's clearly talking about his second coming there, where he returns with the Father and the glory and the angels. And that's the second coming. And now Jesus says, some of you disciples with me who are standing here will not die until you see the kingdom. And clearly the kingdom has something to do with what he just talked about. The power and the glory of his second coming. So this is weird because have any of those disciples seen Jesus' second coming? No, we haven't seen Jesus' second coming. We're waiting for Jesus' second coming. So what did they see? Well, they saw glimpses of it, for sure. They saw at Jesus' ascension into heaven when he's enthroned as the Lord of the world. They saw his glory. They saw, some of them, the destruction of the temple in 70 AD where Christ was vindicated. But they also saw something else. In fact, they saw something 8 days later that gave them a preview of coming attractions, that showed them the glory of the one they were following. Jesus says, some of you are going to see the power and glory of the kingdom of God. And then, 8 days after these sayings, he took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his face was altered. And his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men were with him, talking with him. Next slide. Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Jesus says, some of you are going to see the glory of the kingdom of God, and then he takes these 3 up on a hill, and then as he's praying, he's transfigured. He becomes brilliantly, blindingly white. And then these 2 mammoth Old Testament figures show up. And they start talking with Jesus. Man, I wish I was there, right? I want to hear that conversation. And they're talking about what? What he's about to do in Jerusalem. His death, his burial, his resurrection, his departure, his ascension into heaven. That's the scene, okay? That's the scene. How do the disciples respond? This is great. Now, Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep. But when they became fully awake and they saw his glory and the 2 men who stood with him, and as the men were parting from him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is good that we're here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah, not knowing what he said. Now, apparently, as Jesus was praying and all these things were happening, these men had drifted off to sleep. So you can imagine these men drift off to sleep, and then when they kind of get woken up, they see brilliant Jesus talking with Moses and Elijah, and Peter's just woken up, and he's like, what do I do? But why 3 tents? Like, that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, Peter's never at a loss for words, but he's just like, just blab, let's make 3 tents. Like there was a festival of tents in the Old Testament, but like, why would he do this? Doesn't make any sense. Why does he say this? Here's my best guess. Like, you know how you're a crazy person when you get woken up from a deep sleep? That's what I think is happening here. My wife does this thing with me. I really appreciate when she does this. But like sometimes I'll be like fading off into a deep sleep and she'll think someone's broken into our house. And she doesn't wake me up in the most gracious way. And so I remember one time we had like a shower curtain fall in our house. And I was like fast asleep, and my wife has these like cat-like responses in these situations, and she leans over to the other side of the bed, her arm just comes flying across. Honey, someone's in the house. And I'm like, oh, get up, and I'm up, but I'm not up, right? And so I'm like wandering around, like, okay, what do I get? What happens? And then I go and like look in the kids' bedroom, and I just stare, and I'm like, they're fine. And she's like whisper yelling, you know, when you whisper yell, she's like, I didn't tell you to look at the kids. Like, find the guy. Where's the guy in the house? And I'm like, the kids are fine. I don't know what's going on here. Like, I think that's what's happening here. Peter's just waking up, and he's like, this is amazing. Let's build tents. How about some tents? That sounds great. But here's the thing. The physical slumber is a picture for Luke of spiritual slumber. It's a lack of perception. They still don't see Jesus as he is, even as they see his glory. They see it with their eyes. They don't see it with faith yet. Who is this guy? And so God has to interrupt what's going on. As he was saying these things, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to him." And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. And they kept silent and told no one in those days anything of what they had seen. I love the scene because Peter's still talking. He's just like, let's build the tents. We got to just find some materials. So James, you go over there. And he's still going on about this thing. And God just interrupts him. And they enter this cloud. And they only see Jesus. God says, listen to him. What do the disciples need to see? They need to see the glory of the one they're following. You know why? Because the cost is going to be huge. They need to see him as he is now. They need the preview of coming attractions. They need to see Jesus high and exalted so they are willing to give their lives for him. Here's 3 things the disciples needed to see. The first is this. We have to see the same things, by the way. First, Jesus' glory is unmatched. Who did they see alone? Jesus. You know the reason we want to please people? Because they're glorious to us. Right? They're glorious, they're beautiful, they're powerful, they're scary. We care about their esteem, right? And the only way to live for Jesus is to be more terrified and in awe and in wonder of his glory than anyone else. That's what they see here. Jesus was found alone. The point is this, that Jesus has a glory that no other prophet, no other Old Testament figure, no other religious figure can match. He is the glory of God. Did you catch all the echoes of the Exodus going on here? Remember at Mount Sinai, what comes on top of the mountain, a glory cloud? And then remember, God's voice booms and gives commandments, and then Moses sees kind of the after effects of the glory of God, and his face radiates with glory. You know what Luke is saying here? That Jesus is the greater Moses. Moses reflected the glory of God. Jesus just radiates the glory of God. He is the glory of God. Moses relayed God's words. Jesus just speaks God's words because he's God. He is the glory. He's the one who illuminates the disciples' faces, and what we see here too is he's the one who illuminates the entire biblical story. Why are Moses and Elijah talking with Jesus? Because Moses and Elijah are the ones that wrote about Jesus. Moses represents the law. Elijah represents the prophets. The law and the prophets, the 2 great portions of the Old Testament, who are they all pointing to? Jesus. He is the point of the story. He is the glory of the story. To look at Jesus is to look at the one they were pointing to. It's interesting. What they are discussing, Luke says it's his departure, Jesus' departure. Do you know what the Greek word is? Exodus. They're talking about the exodus Jesus is about to accomplish. Do you know what that means? That exodus in the Old Testament, that wasn't the real exodus. That was a pointer to the exodus who was going to accomplish. It was a picture of Jesus, our great leader, dying as the Lamb of God in the blood sacrifice and then taking us through the waters of sin and death to the promised land. He's the one who the whole story points to. He's the glory. We can count the cost of following him because he's glorious. Second thing, Jesus' word is final. Don't you love this? This is my son, my chosen one. Listen to who? Listen to him. Stop listening to your own thoughts, your own opinions, your own conjectures. Just listen to him because he speaks my words. Listen to him. Jesus' word is final. That is so important for us to understand that Jesus' word endures, nothing else does. And I think sometimes we can get so caught up in what the culture thinks or has believed for the last 5 minutes that we don't realize this is here today, it is gone tomorrow. It's going to be another thing. It's helpful to study church history because you see the objections that people lodged against Jesus 2,000 years ago, they seem silly today. 1,500 years ago, they seem silly. Even 100 years ago. They always change. And they always fade out of style. But do you know what endures? Jesus and his word. I mean, 100 years ago, think about this. It was weird to believe that miracles could happen. That was the early 20th century. But everyone thought Jesus' teaching on sex and marriage was fine. Of course, we assume that. Now, fast forward 100 years, and it's not weird to believe in supernatural and miracles. Everyone's spiritual now. Like, sure, I believe in the miraculous, but now, Jesus' ethics, we don't like that. The culture's objections always change. The grass withers, the flower fades, the word of the Lord endures. This thing outlasts. His word is final. Listen to him. That will help you keep following when you just feel like, am I crazy? Am I crazy to keep believing this? No, you're not. Finally, here's the most encouraging truth of all. Jesus' future is ours. This is a preview of coming attractions, right? Where we see Jesus is glorious. Jesus suffers, but then he's vindicated. We're following Jesus. What does that mean? This life, we have to choose to suffer. What's coming? Glory, vindication. Paul says it this way: we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer for him. Take up your cross. Suffer with him in order that what? We may also be glorified with him. When you see Christ in his glory, it's a preview of the glory you will share in. His glory is unmatched. His word is final. His future is ours. If you fix your eyes on that, I think you can do hard things. How do you do that, Jeff? How do you do that? We do it by faith. John Owen, the Puritan, said this: beholding the glory of Christ by faith, we shall find rest to our souls. Our minds are apt to be filled with troubles, fears, cares, dangers, distresses, ungoverned passions, and lusts. By these, our thoughts are filled with chaos, darkness, and confusion. But when the soul is fixed on the glory of Jesus, then the mind finds rest and peace. For to be spiritually minded is peace. Christ wants us to see his glory. We don't get to see it with our eyes on this side of eternity. But we can see it as we look in the Word, and I think, family, this changes the way we pray. What should you do when you spend time praying? Here's what I would revert to. Okay, ready? Get ready to pray. Gimme, 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 gimme. That's what I want to do when I pray. Because the most urgent thing in the world is to get my requests answered, right? And that's fine. It's fine to ask God for your requests. You should. But that's just one part of praying. That's petition. You know, there's this other thing called adoration. You know what you do? You see who God is, and you realize you're in his presence. And by faith, you meditate on the glory of Jesus. You take a passage like this, and you look at who he is and who he is for us, and you just stay there. And you behold him by faith, and you praise him until your anxious cares begin to subside. You know why you need to do that? Because if you just say, God, take away my anxiety, take away my anxiety, take away this problem, you're still at some level in fix-it mode, right? You've got to do this, do this, do this. You've got to, at some point, stop and just look at the one who is even now seated on the throne. The one who is not troubled or disturbed by anything that happens in this world. He's got it all on lockdown. It's all working to his glorious grace. And he's the one who died for you. Spend time on that. Because, by the way, the world is not going to show you the glory of Christ. You're not going to see this anywhere else. But when you choose to dwell on Scripture and do that. And the place ultimately to look is the gospel itself. Jesus is full of grace and truth. That is his glory. That's what we see on the cross. His faithfulness to take our sin and our punishment, the revelation of the justice of God and the grace of God, that Jesus was willing to take it for us. Family, I know it's hard sometimes to live like a public Christian. I get it. Here's the thing to remember, I think. Whenever we're ashamed to identify with Jesus, we have to remember the one who was not ashamed to identify with us. That Jesus saw us in our rebellion, in our weakness, and in our shame, and he took our cross upon himself and identified with us at our lowest and most despicable. And Scripture says he was not ashamed to identify with us in our shame. If I remember that about Jesus, I will not be ashamed to identify with the one who identified with me first. Let's pray. So Jesus, by your Spirit, I pray that we would take up our cross and follow you. God, for some of us, that might mean just pushing through the pain line and having a spiritual conversation. For some of us, it might mean just blessing someone who's difficult and they don't reciprocate. It might be serving in obscurity, Lord, and the world go, why do you keep doing that? It might mean keeping our convictions even when it makes us weird. But Jesus, as we follow, I pray we'd realize, Lord, and by faith we would grasp the reality that you are not just the suffering victim, you are the glorious risen King, to whom everyone will give an account. Help us to fix our eyes on you, Jesus, seated at the right hand of God, and follow where you lead. We ask it in your name. Amen. Our benediction today comes from Hebrews 12, where the writer says, "Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted." Remember the suffering that Jesus endured for you, and then lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us, family, run with endurance the race set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is now seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Would we see him as he is, glorious, that we would take up our cross and follow him. Go in peace.